We have a vacancy currently.
Oh, that's fine.
Gianna is no longer on the.
Right, yeah, okay.
Oh, that's
So
fine.
we got enough people.
Beaming, and I'm gonna turn the recording on. Give me 1 sec. Okay, make
Retro recording.
sure that I'm fully functional here. Okay.
Well, welcome to the Paloma Planning Commission meeting for January 17th, 2023. Our chair, Gary Connor, is not here tonight, and our vice chair went off the Planning Commission, so I was asked to chair the meeting tonight. Could we have a roll call, please?
Darling Rose,
Here.
Dan Hunsaker,
Here.
John Barlow,
Here.
Timothy Balak,
Here.
and Haley Green.
Here.
Thank you. We have minutes from November 21st, 2022. Do we have any discussion on them, or do we have any? I guess there's only 2 or 3 of us here that was here then, so. A motion to approve them would be in order.
And I might make the note that John and Timothy, you may vote on these minutes even though you were not in attendance at that meeting. Or you may choose to abstain, whichever works better for you.
I moved to approve. I didn't see anything I thought needed change.
I'll second that. Is there any discussion on it? Haley, did you have anything?
I don't have anything, no.
Okay. All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. I think motion carries. Or did we have an extension?
I just abstained, yeah.
You have one extension. I didn't hear you, so I thought I should get that correct. Okay. At the first of the new year, we have elections for chair and vice chair. As I mentioned, Gary Connor has been the chair for the last couple of years. I had a conversation with him when he asked me if I would chair the meeting, and he said he would still be interested in chairing the committee. And so unless there was somebody else that wanted to chair it, it would be in order for one of us to nominate him for that position.
I nominate Gary Connor to be the chairperson for the coming year.
Is there a second? I can second it, I guess. I'm looking for you, Haley, to.
I can second.
All right. Those in favor of the motion to elect Gary Connor as the chair, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no? No, okay. And then we have a vice chair, and as I guess as I said earlier, I'm the longest term member. Doesn't mean I need to do it, but if I would be willing to be the vice chair if anybody would want to nominate me.
I'm happy to do that. I nominate Dan Hunsaker for the vice chair position.
I'll second.
Okay, all right. And then so we have nominated Van Hunsaker for the vice chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. So at our next meeting, Gary should be here, so you won't have to have me do this too often. Okay, next item on the agenda, we do have a public hearing. I have to say a bunch of different things here to begin with, so I need to take a moment to make sure I'm doing it right. We have a public hearing. It's PC 22-11 for a conditional use permit to create the Paul Cochran Veterans Memorial Park. That location is at 1545 College Street. The applicable criteria is section 18.120 of the Florida Municipal Code. The zone designation is office residential. The comp plan designation is mixed use commercial. And so in this case, we can put a park in that zoning as long as we give additional or conditional approval for it. So the order of proceedings tonight will be, we'll have a staff report, the public testimony. If the commissioners have any questions of staff, the commission's deliberation and the final recommendations. I see that we're going to have at least one person speak tonight. So it says here to give you 3 minutes, but if you need a few more than that, that's fine, because you're the only one here. I assume we don't have anybody.
Just Mr. Neiman.
All right. Persons testifying either orally or in writing may request a continuance or request the record be held open. These requests should be included in your testimony. Okay, I'll open the public hearing. And we will, we didn't have to have any declarations of conflict of interest. Does any of the members of the commission have conflicts? Does anybody want to rebut that? That somebody has one? Okay. Are there any objections or jurisdictional grounds, meaning that the planning commission is not the appropriate body for this hearing? Okay. So we'll have, again, this is a land use decision, such as the case under consideration this evening, are evaluated against applicable statewide planning goals and guidelines and criteria for the land use, land development code and comprehensive plan as presented in the staff report. Can we have the staff report, please?
Yeah, I'll do a little summary on it. So this being a conditional use, type 3 is why it's in front of you. Most of the time on smaller developments, they won't come to the planning commission, but because of the nature of the use and the possible public impact or negative effects of the use on the surrounding area, it rises to the level where conditional use and public hearing and comes before you all. And in probably most cases, it's depending on what the use is, you can probably, I don't identify as many of the different impacts that it would have, but we're all familiar with parks, and this is a small park. It's on an individual lot in an established neighborhood. It is surrounded by residential uses on all sides, but it would just come through, the typical impacts that you would identify with a park, hours of operation, buffering from the residential uses, noise, maybe light, and a lot of the criteria kind of dealt with that, and we went through and kind of evaluated it through what was proposed through the site plan, and went through there and didn't really thought that the proposed use or what they're proposing is buffering fairly well from the neighbors. There are some restrictions already written in code for hours of operation that deal with parks from dusk to one, I think it's a half an hour after dawn, or dawn to a half an hour after dusk. Get those mixed up. So there are some of that. The lighting is minimal. So I looked at some of the items with pertaining to parking, and I think from what I would understand, this park probably on certain occasions would get some more intensive use for special events and certain memorials. So one of the, probably it does have good access. It's on the corner, so there's plenty of parking there. There's no off-street parking. There's good adequate access for pedestrians and bikes. But I would think the only impact that I kind of identified, but not sure what the total impact would be probably on a special event for parking for probably short periods of time during the event, whether it's adjacent or down the street, but hopefully those will be a little bit more advertised so people know what to expect on those certain days. So yeah, going through the criteria, just like any other typical new development, went through site design review for landscaping, buffering, lighting. There was some issues, not issues, but some future concerns about some stormwater. There'll be like an engineering review. We didn't really get the engineering comments back right now, but it can be, but pretty assured that the public facilities can handle this type of development. So I think it's positive for the neighborhood, positive for the city, and I would recommend approval.
I have one question. Is
Yes,
this the appropriate time?
Yes,
The landscaping and the new trees, I noticed that there won't be water facilities there for a bathroom or sink or anything like that, but will the landscaping get water?
Yes, yeah, there will be an irrigation system installed.
Oh, good.
Mhm.
Okay,
There's already water at the property from the house,
great,
so
excellent.
that's kind of minimal on our part. We just have to basically run the irrigation systems. And we're going to ask the contractor to build that, just so that they get in there after we get the landscaping plan and can decide where that needs to go.
Awesome. I just didn't see it in here anywhere.
Right.
so.
Yeah.
Are there any other preliminary questions for staff from the planning commission? Yes.
I've a couple of questions. I know along some of the side streets that where they intersect with Main, there is some angled parking. Is there any possibility of putting that in here? Is there room on the street?
I don't know if there's room. Pat would probably be able to comment. I'm thinking no, and we're using the entire property just because of the size of it. It's pretty small already. So
Yeah.
we're trying to really bring that out as far as we can to maximize the park space. Pat, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think there's enough right away there to accommodate
Okay.
that. Because I think right now there's like allowed parking on both sides. So yeah, you may not get as much as angled parking. But yeah, there's plenty along College Street, and people might have to walk a little bit during an event. Hopefully the neighborhood will embrace it and come to some of the special events as well. It won't be super far, far away, people driving. There'll be a lot of pedestrian access to it.
Great. My second question is when the council discussed the design, we requested disabled play structures that would accommodate disabled individuals. Has that been incorporated in the plans?
We haven't done the final design on the actual play equipment yet. We'll work with the designer. She's getting into she started this week to do our plans for construction bidding. So in that, we would include that. And really everything that she suggested was ADA accessible already. So as long as we meet her recommendations, and she had several different items that she included at different price points. So I don't think that'll be an issue for us to get those incorporated.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so did either of you have any preliminary questions?
I do have a question. It's probably out of my ignorance, but there's a statement under part A1 of the use criteria, third paragraph down, where it says the vast majority of the time the park will be accessed by pedestrians and visitors not using motor vehicles. Is there support for that, or is that an assumption based on the size of the park or the location, or is it based on experience with other similarly sized parks?
Yeah, I mean, it is more of an assumption, but I think it's fair enough for these small pocket parks where they typically are just used by the general neighborhood around them. There's larger parks in the city that people for different types of uses or larger gatherings would probably go to use. This is just about a quarter acre, and you know, it's not going to be a park where there's going to be, like, I don't think barbecue you know, places on there, or a lot of seating. So I think it's more accommodating to just kind of local use. But yeah, not as much probably. So, long distance.
Thank you.
That just raises a question, will there be electricity if somebody wanted to have a little PA system where they're talking to a group of people or something?
We do have power to the property. We haven't come up with a final determination on whether we'll have maybe a power hookup at the pavilion area, or if there will be additional, but there is going to be power there to light the flagpoles. So
Okay.
there is the
Power will
possibility
be there.
of that.
Probably, we should go ahead and have the applicant, in this case, she is going to speak for the applicant, and maybe some of these things that we've been talking about may come up. And then we also have some comments from the public that wanted to add some support. If you could go ahead and do your the applicant's presentation.
It's a little unusual because I am serving as both the applicant and staff, because it is the city. And of course, we are the ones who are ensuring that all of these things are being met for other applicants. So it is a little unusual, but the background that I have, which you've probably seen in here, so I won't go over it too extensively, is that this park has been in the works since 2019 when it was donated by Beverly Cochran Durham. She asked that this park be turned into a Veterans Memorial Park named after her son, Paul Cochran. And so this project has been in the works since then. It was kind of a lot delayed by COVID. So it had a lot of momentum at the beginning. The house was removed. Some volunteer groups came in and worked on that. And so it just picked up momentum again late last year. And we did, you'll see in your packet, the preliminary design work that we had done, so that we could get that to the council and kind of move it forward with their approval. Council has supported this project since at least 2001 when they made a resolution to apply for grant funding. So that process also took a little while, but we do have a grant in place right now that we're trying to get grant funds expended. The project is, that part of the project is supposed to be completed by the end of May, but we've already talked to them about an extension just because everything these days takes longer than you think it should. So it's been a little bit of a slow process, but I think we're in good shape now. I mentioned that we do have the designer that did these plans is doing our construction drawings in conjunction with a local engineer that's doing some of the site plan work like the storm. So we will have all of those in place, and because it is a public project, it will go out to bid, and we'll go through that process to secure a contractor who we will ask to work with volunteer groups, because we have a lot of volunteer effort that wants to go into this park. Our public speaker that's wants to speak is one of the volunteers that's worked extensively on the park and has coordinated a lot of efforts for the park. The other thing I wanted to mention is, like Pat said, currently the property owners that are immediately adjacent both know a lot about the park. One of them is a city employee that works in the Public Works Department, and the other one is a park board member's son. So they are both very aware of the project, and we have talked to them both about some of their thoughts on the landscaping and fencing to go up against those properties. In addition, the park board did a community survey in 2021, I think it was May, and they specifically, I believe, went door to door in that neighborhood, in that area around that park. So whoever was living there at the time, they solicited feedback from them on things from what kind of things would you like to see in the park to what are your concerns. One of the primary concerns was really just actually the flagpole noise. They were concerned that if the flags were up all the time, they would make noise. So we have agreed. Yeah, so we've agreed to have flags up during special events or occasions, Memorial Day, Flag Day, things like that, and to reduce that noise for them. But otherwise, the neighbors have embraced the project. I've been out on site several times and had neighbors approach us, their staff on site, and we've only heard positive comments from the neighbors. So, yeah.
Okay, do we have any questions for the applicant?
It's probably in here, but when do you expect it to go out to bid?
So I believe at this point, the firm that's working on the plans is supposed to be completed with those in April. So we'll go out as soon as possible. After that, our city engineer is ready to go as soon as they get those plans. So that's really what we're waiting on, is just to get the plans all finished and ready for that process.
I did have a question, and I guess I was going to talk about it later, but you mentioned the neighbors there. I noticed in there there's a 30-inch fence. Is the way it was described, a 30-inch fence would be put up where there isn't already fencing. And I guess I was wondering to myself, though, as you pointed out, the folks that are living there now,
right?
If I'm wondering to myself, because they may not be there forever, and they're probably happy with it going like that, because you said you talked to them about that sort of stuff. I'm wondering if it might be better to put up a fence, the whole space, the two directions.
So I think it was the way it was worded. So currently, the property that's facing College Street has a 6-foot privacy fence or so that runs for part of their property length. We can extend that out toward College Street further for them. And so our thought was that we're going to extend the 6-foot as far as we can by code,
Right.
And then drop it down to the whatever is it like 4 feet when you're within
30, well,
30
inches.
30.
Yeah, it was more just for site
sure.
hearing.
So
Just
then we'll-
people the two homeowners, really, it's just for them. We're backing out that they can see
Right.
down the street.
Right.
If any cars are coming.
Right.
So it'll probably
yeah.
be the first eight feet, and then after that 8 feet, it'll be 6 feet.
Mhm. So that, and also to discourage people from walking across that property. The property next door does not have a fence, and it visually, it looks like, let's walk right across this lawn and go into the park. So we will bring that. And then on the property that is on 16th Street, there's not a fence there currently, so we would put a 6-foot fence along that property.
Oh.
In addition to some shrubbery in front of that to kind of get them more noise blocking.
Okay.
So I think it was just the way it was worded. Yes, we do intend for those property owners to have as much privacy as we can.
That when you talked about the 30 inches, I was thinking, well, probably not that it'll be a dog park, but people will be out walking their dogs and, you know, I on a 30-foot fence, I could see bigger dogs just jumping
Oh,
over the
jumping.
fence into the neighbor's yards and you
Right.
don't want that happening.
Yeah,
So
no,
I think your explanation
okay.
addresses the concern I had. Does anybody else got a question?
Just a quick question. I know that the large tree that was in the park was diseased and had to be removed. And you're going to put in a large caliber tree. What is large caliber? How big is large caliber?
That's going to be a city budget question, really. You know, trees can get very expensive as you go up in caliper size. So the hope is that maybe we can find someone to donate or partially donate, give us that wholesale. We will get as large of a tree as we can get there that's viable to transplant, obviously. But we don't really have an idea until we look at costs and project costs, what we can get there. That's just the intent, is, you know, to get as large of a tree as we can. But again, it's
the intent was like to be like large canopy hardwoods. So
Right.
that when it does grow up, it may not be put in, you know, as a large caliper, but be able to grow and get some height and get more canopy.
when we did intend to put up a larger caliper tree as well, like that has been said through the process is that we would do that because that tree was removed and it was a significant tree on the property. It just wasn't viable any longer. But yes, we hope to, you know, I can't give you an actual caliper at this time. I ordered a 3.5 inch caliper oak tree. This was it was pre-COVID. It was $500. I would think we can get something larger than that. But we'll just have to see what the budget is. And it really does depend on the tree species and availability and all of that.
Our attorney has a comment.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt earlier, but I was doing some digging in my binder for the script, and I think part of the script is missing for my disclosure, and I just wanted to make sure that even though the city's the applicant, that still needs to be read, and it does. So because no one else has testified but the city as the applicant, I'm just going to take a moment to read that right now, if that's okay with everyone.
We do have another person that wants to talk, but go ahead.
Right, and this should be read before, this should have been read before Chelsea started presenting as the applicant.
Okay.
Right, so I'm just going to put it in now, and that way, you know, if there's anything that comes up, we still have all of those disclosures and statements done, okay?
We'll just say that I was staff before you read it, and then I can be the applicant after.
It's, all right.
Serving both
It's
roles.
okay. Now that it's done, I mean, it's okay. All right. So at this time, this reminder to those of you testifying, you should direct your testimony towards the applicable criteria of the case or other criteria in the municipal code, comprehensive plan, or land development code, which you believe to apply to this decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the city or other parties the opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the State Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. The failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to that issue precludes an action for damages in the circuit court. All right, continue. Sorry.
No,
Thank
that's
you.
okay. So is there any other questions?
Just one more thought. Is there, and I know you can't answer this, but is there a possibility of using a tree from where the berm is going in to drain the streetscapes project and moving it to the park?
I don't think that's a possibility just because that work I think is set to be done by March 1st or coming right up. So I just don't think that it's going to be, it wouldn't be feasible for planting. And honestly, because of the timeline of this project, the planting for that particular tree especially would probably not be done until later this year. The park may substantially be finished, but we may have to wait to put in some of that, the shrubbery and the trees, just to make sure that they're viable and have the best chance at survival.
Good point. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I know.
Idea though.
Nice idea. I like your idea.
Maybe we could park it.
I know. They don't like that. Trees do not like that.
Put them in certain spots and design around the trees.
I just have a question or a comment. Because Darlene brought up the the possibility of using amplified sound for users of the park, and being somebody that lived right next to a park in the past. Is there any city restrictions on that? Is there any
Yes.
noise criteria that the users of the park are gonna have to use, are gonna have to stay within?
Yes, so if anyone wants to use amplified sound in a city park, they have to get city manager approval.
Okay.
So we have a permit process basically. So if that were a concern, I don't know what we do with the other pocket parks. I don't think it comes up very often. It's usually City Park or Mayor's River Park.
Right.
But you know, that is a good thing to keep in mind. And I would think that any events that would be happening are probably not going to need amplified sound, but if they were, it would have to go through the city manager's approval.
I'd like to add on to that, that the city code has restrictions on hours for that kind of broadcast and limitations on it. And so when someone obtains a broadcast permit,
Right.
those hours are reviewed to make sure that they are neighborhood.
We have another guest that would like to, or I should say, are there anybody in the audience who would like to speak in support of this application? Come forward, please.
And I,
If you could give your name and address and.
my name is Eric Neiman, 2500 Applegate Street in Paloma. And actually came here tonight a little bit to advocate on behalf of the family. And it's important for people to know who Paul Cochran was, anyway, right? So Paul Cochran was a graduate of Paloma High School. He lived in the property that was on, that this park will be on, back 1964, 1966 timeframe. He graduated in the class of 66. He drove a 57 T-Bird around for a while, enlisted in the Army, and was went to airborne school at Fort Benning and deployed to South Vietnam. He was a member of the 101st Airborne Division, and he was killed in action on May 1st, 1968. Right. So that's a little bit about him. And this is his mother, Miss Beverly Durham. She lived here in Paloma for another 50 years, up on Neebeck Hill, and she passed away in August 5th, 2018. So almost 50 years later, in her estate and will, she asked that this teenage property that her son grew up in be gifted to the city for the purposes of creating a veteran park in her son's honor. She incidentally is buried up here at Mount Union Cemetery. And so she's here tonight. To say build the park. So that's it.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Answer anything? Incidentally, she does have 3 children. Shane Fritz, who was class of 70 from Paloma High School. She lives in Staten now, but she was the custodian of the estate that came to the city, who came to City Hall and announced the gift and what its intention was and what its conditions were. There was Nick Cochran, who's class of 72 from Paloma High School. I believe he's an attorney in California. And there's also they also have a half brother, Fritz Bayer from Hawaii, who's come and visited the property here within the past year.
Thank you.
Went to high school with Nick Cochran. He was in my
Did you?
brother's class. And
And seeing no others in the audience who would wish to speak, I'll first ask if there is any request for a continuance to hold the record open. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Now, it comes back to the planning commission for deliberation. There is a motion on the fourth page of the first section, either to approve or deny the application. If there was a motion and then we can have any discussion we want, then you can move forward. I'd appreciate it.
Okay. I move to approve the application for the conditional use permit file number PC 22-11 based on the findings of fact contained in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. I guess for me personally, I think this would, definitely would be the right thing to do. Over the years, when I was mayor, we began an effort, if you will, to establish more parks around the city. At the time, not that it was my thing, it was collectively the city wanted to do that. And I don't know what we're up to, maybe 7 or 8 parks now. Some of them quite small, like this will be, where we only had 2 before. And when I first was here in the city, so I think it's a good thing to have in recognition of this individuals and all veterans. I think that it makes sense to have something like this. We have a letter from the American Legion as well. Are you part of that? Yeah. That in support of it. I could imagine that they may have, in the future, do some sort of an event or something like that, recognitions, kind of like Pat was talking about. And I think that would just be in keeping with the community that we are, to have something of that nature. And so I'm certainly in support of it. Any other comments, or is there any questions or concerns that we have, any of us have? Oh, Hayden, I'm sorry.
I just have like a weird question. Why only 2 bicycles for parking? I just circled that and thought it was odd that it says, minimum 2 bicycles, and it said we'll provide parking for 2 bicycles. So I'm just wondering why only 2. Is there something specific that I missed in the code?
It is just what the code requires. That's the
Just
minimum.
the minimal. Okay.
So what's the city's intent? Just to do the minimum?
For bike parking?
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I'm not sure I'm not sure it's in the design, so we will have to find a location for it. That would be my only concern. I'm all for more bike parking, but I'm a little concerned about what we're going to have to move or remove to put more than that in. I think that our designer can find an area for it, definitely. That's what she does. I'm amazed that she fit all of this in this tiny lot already, but yeah, I'm guessing that Pat. That you were just
I mean, it could actually be in the public right of way as well, as long as you maintain like a barrier free access,
Sure.
probably 5 feet. So depending on how they design it, they could do probably a stack of 2 bikes.
Yeah, and those bike racks that we're putting downtown, they're pretty free form, so you can actually put quite a few bikes, I think, on a couple of those, because you can put bikes in the middle and bikes on either side. So that might function well, something like that.
Well, maybe if we could just if you hear the question, and I guess as I think about it, because we do have, there is a bit of a play area, and I guess I could see that people would come to use it
Mhm.
and
Yeah, I
kids
agree.
riding their bike makes sense. I mean, we'd want them to do that. So I guess I would, although it's not part of our issue here,
Mhm.
that, the city probably do better than that, and do more than two. Yes,
Chelsea, do you think we could use the same design of the bike racks for this park, or do you think that would be appropriate?
Yeah, let me look into that. I think that definitely in general, even if we weren't doing the cutout designs. For those of you who don't know, the Downtown Streetscape Art Committee, which Ruth is also on, has selected a cutout design. They're looped bike racks. They basically are a loop. Some of them have a design on them, but at least looking at the looped option, because we really are close, and that's part of why you can't see it in this picture, but the pavilion is actually going to be a Timber Framers Guild, we hope, project. So the pavilion is going to be timber, and we're trying to make it kind of tie into that Timber Town downtown project. So it would make sense to extend the bike racks there as well to kind of
go together.
yeah, it's the closest park to that project, and it's really kind of closely adjacent to that downtown area.
A lot of sense.
So,
I
yeah.
like that.
Okay,
So I'm gonna write those notes down to try to look at more than 2 bike racks. The requirement minimum is 2, but just as a general feedback that we're getting, to try to look at more than 2 bike racks, and then see if we can look at those same bike racks that are going downtown.
any other discussion? Okay, well, let's have a vote on it, and all those in favor of approving the application for the conditional use permit file number PC 22-11, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. You can get busy on this.
All right.
Not that you haven't been already.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Let's see. Agenda, the rest of these, we're almost done. Staff update. Now, this is something, just as a note for the new folks, this is something that, I don't know, sometime along the way, staff has been doing this for the planning commission, just to help keep us kind of abridged of what is going on in terms of development and planning, things going on in the community, and they've been doing a good job of just listing everything that's going on. Pat can talk about it, but we can feel free to, if there's something there that you have a question about or whatever, feel free to, ask away. Okay, Pat.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, just trying to list all the stuff that we've done since the last time we've seen you. Some of the stuff, maybe a little bit of an update if it's an ongoing project. Just so you know, I mean, a lot of it is joint effort between all staff, all the planning staff, Ruth, Leilani, myself, and Chris, and just processing applications. Typically have 4 or 5 on my desk at a time. As we move these through, some are pretty mundane and not too exciting, but and others are, and some are a little bit larger. This, I think, is a combination of a couple of months, because we canceled the December meeting. But things are still pretty good. And in fact, I think, I'm not sure if it really gets to it here, but if you see number 10, application for partition, but more importantly, it was the 40th case that we had, and 40th application. that we had last year. That was, I think we might have actually went to 42 by the end of the year, which has been pretty consistent the last couple of years, which is a lot. Benton County, I think last year only had 80.
Wow.
So our little department did as much, I mean, Philomath is a lot busier, you know, and keeps us a lot busier, keeps me here. That's why I'm here all the time. Because there's just a lot going on constantly and things, you know, continuously get dropped off. So yeah, you know, like I said, some is a little bit more exciting than others, but it's definitely enough to keep us busy. Number 7 is the Core Pack construction company that is doing the construction of the streetscape project. And that was just, we had to do a type 2 for temporary use for where they're going to park their equipment. One of them was on the city property, and I think, I'm not sure if they're asking for a second.
12 is the other one.
Yeah, number 12.
And number 12, yeah, they're secondary. They're actually having two sites. The other one is over by True Value, right next to True Value. You can kind of already see them there.
Yeah.
So we're kind of catching up to that. But yeah, I mean, some of that's just process. We didn't want to slow them on there. So
I have a question. Number 4 just mentions a single family home. I was wondering whereabouts that one is.
I'm pretty sure that's on Neebeck Hill.
Yeah, it was.
It was on Neebeck Hill, yeah. So they're adding, yeah, I mean, a typical interior remodel or an addition, it's not really gonna come there. It's not that exciting.
Right.
But when you're doing an ADU, what was that?
Right.
I believe that was maybe a garage conversion.
Garage conversion. But it's important to know that I think when they're converting them into accessory dwelling units, and I think this one is for a family member moving closer, you know, moving in with like an older,
Good.
just moving in. So I think that's a positive thing. And yeah, so
I think the 40 applications indicates that, you know, we've got some good infill progress going, and that's important in our, you know, desire to have more housing.
and one of the things too, that we're going to memorialize a little bit more with some code changes this coming year is since I've got here, we started to look at when certain commercial tenant spaces have changed over or reoccupancy of a different use. We've been taking that opportunity to upgrade the sites, because the sites are not up to code. You know, don't have adequate landscaping or parking or lighting, or their sidewalks are falling apart. So we've been using reoccupancies to draw them in, to just take a look at them, you know, run through the site design review process, and require them to upgrade before they can get a permanent occupancy.
I would add to that Chisholm and CrossFit is an example of that. They moved into the old Jenny Lou foot shop area, and the site design review through planning achieved some upgrades to our code requirements. Everybody pulled together because, being a gym, they really wanted to be in their new facility January 1st, because that's like the biggest day of the year. And I think that what did we clear, the December 28th?
Yeah.
It was close. And I was not in town, so Pat and Leilani and our building official, Daryl Long, everybody pulled together to make sure that all the boxes were checked off.
And I think some of these might be a little bit more involved and costly, and we don't want to hold up the tenants from going in there and opening up and starting their business. So we're going to create maybe a little bit of like a bond or kind of a letter of credit type of thing, where they can maybe we get them in on a temporary C of O if they provide a certain amount of money, especially in the winter when there's certain repairs or landscaping that you can't do. that they're better served to be done in the spring or summer. Give them a temporary permit to open up, do the work when they can, and not just, not slow them down, but make it reasonable. But right now, that's not in the code, so that might be something that we want to put in there so we can start using that as a tool. So
Yeah.
there'll be some code changes that are gonna come up that are gonna be based around this commercial reoccupancy and industrial reoccupancy as well, so.
Is there any other questions regarding this staff activity report?
I wanted to quickly point out the building permits on number 13. Single family residential has slowed down, obviously, and then many of you probably have seen the news about Mill Pond Crossing, but with that not producing any homes, don't have a lot of home permits going on right now. I'd say the answer is we have none.
When was the last time you issued one, do you know?
It's been a few months. I also wanted to check back with Catherine. Catherine, was there a statement regarding the fuel rights there was there anything that needed to be said to close out that public hearing or the decision by the council, the commission?
Did we read that it's going to the city council because it's not, it's a recommendation? That's the only part.
Oh, no, I didn't have that. Where was that?
Sorry, good catch, Ruth, sorry.
Oh, it's not.
It's not going to council. We already went to council with it.
This is just a
I mean,
conditional use, it's type
let's-
3. It's not a recommendation.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay.
Okay, then in that case, let me read. Sorry, let me make sure that I
Apologize, I
can read mine. No problem. Any participant not satisfied with this decision may appeal to the city council within 12 days of the date of the notice of the decision, of the date the notice of the decision is signed.
Yeah, that's not in here.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Doing great. Man.
The under the announcement and staff updates, as you know, next meeting, or we're having a joint city council planning commission meeting that's Monday. Do you want to share what our expectations should be?
And what the
Or
format
what
is gonna be.
we're gonna do? Is it like a workshop?
It's going to be a work session. We did discuss that with Chris this afternoon. Packet should be out tomorrow or Thursday.
Not tomorrow, Thursday.
I mean, I know we're talking about the comp plan, but that's about all I understand.
Policies mentioned.
Yeah, so I think briefly what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a lot of the work that the planning commission and city council did last year with updating the comp plan. As well as the code kind of leading into the streetscape project and stuff that went on with that. And now take some of these, and there's a lot of recommendations that were spoke about generally, but not submitted as part of the housing needs analysis or economic opportunities analysis. And we're going to bring those kind of back. We're going to kind of group them into, we're pair them into groups that looking for priorities on which ones you feel that we should look at first, and then not going into too much detail about it, about the priority, but generally, are we going to be looking at housing? Is that more important right now? Is it more important to address maybe the commercial and the downtown area, which also would accommodate some new housing, because we're going to be talking about an overlay district and some higher density zoning within it, or some other general areas in the city that the housing needs analysis made recommendations to increase density, and just some overall areas that we feel we can accomplish some of these recommendations and policies that we've already passed, and maybe even throw in some some other general topics of discussion for rezonings. And that might be getting rid of the OR district and taking it and kind of sparsing it up between the adjacent residential district or the adjacent commercial district. And then adding maybe even some new commercial areas along maybe like the north side of Main Street, east of 20th Ave. So where like Bob Mayer's property is, and maybe up to like Landmark Drive and stuff like that and that's looking at maybe like a whole different commercial style district or designation for larger regional style commercial projects, so we can bring in job creators, because we still want to keep focus on the downtown areas and the small shops and small, general boutiques and small things that serve like the general community as a whole, but also open up that there's not much room other than what you're looking at, like for where True Value is, that could accommodate like a more regional, area. Also, Les Schwab is coming in. Does everyone know Les
They're
Schwab?
here. They're here.
Yeah, the trucks were there this
Big one
morning.
day and the Schwab in the neck.
So there, yeah, we're hoping that's what I was just talking about as far as like a site design review or reoccupancy to bring that site up, to code, meaning buffering from the street, an actual parking lot, sidewalks, striped parking lot, landscaping, buffering, we talked about as one of the first things when I got here is there's so much outdoor storage and it's just sitting on people's property and it's just it's just an eyesore. So there's, we wrote some code in there to screen that. So that'll take a whole look. We're already kind of pressuring them into doing a whole tear down rebuild, like they're doing up on Circle and 9 in Corvallis, something very nice like that. So and I guess I know just generally I heard that that roof is in bad shape. So maybe it might be that they open up for a year or something, and then maybe when that project's done in Corvallis, come back to this one. So we're just crossing our fingers on that. But regardless, that site will be cleaned up. I think Corvallis Clinic is still moving very slow on their reoccupancy there. They haven't really done a lot of work. I think they're doing some interior work, but it's very slow. Yeah, but that's going back to next week. I think we'll be looking for, we're going to give you some ideas of where we think some attention needs to begin to look, and then you guys help us prioritize what you want us to do. So
Question, I assume since you've been appointed, I don't know when you guys got appointed, just last week or 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
So
Week and a
you
half ago.
had a chance to meet with staff?
Yeah, we've met with Pat.
Okay, because I mean, for a period, probably, I was just thinking about it. What they're going to be talking about next week is stuff that at least those of us that are still here have been involved with doing. So this is going to be, your heads will be spinning about.
I have a lot of questions in the back of my mind, but I don't think this is the right.
No. And what I was going to say about that is, feel free. I should speak for him, but feel free to talk to Chris and Pat.
Yeah.
Particularly, I don't know how much you're involved with any of it, but I'm sure they would be happy to, meet with you and kind of help you get up to speed as the best they can.
well, when you get your packets this week, Thursday or Friday, maybe, we'll see.
You can tell who's doing it, right?
But then feel free to ask us some questions. But I would just say to take probably what we hopefully we'll give you a pretty good outline. But a lot of it is coming right from your comprehensive plan, and all of you know, the housing chapter, the economy chapter. Those are completely all brand new, probably. Well, we kept some of the existing policies, but I would say they're probably 70 to 80% all new policies.
So that's a little bit of a read.
Yeah. I mean, it's more so that you don't want to read you don't want to read the development code. Just don't, it's useless, because even if you read it, you're going to forget about it. We will direct you a lot in the staff report of where to go, where to look. And as you get a little bit more, you know, you can branch out. But I think where it would be really important, because you're going to be seeing probably a lot more. What we have seen here, what we've brought to the planning commission has been legislative items. So code changes, comprehensive plan changes, zone changes, map changes. You're going to find that it's all based, or the criteria all goes back to the comprehensive plan. Yeah.
Okay. All right, is there anything else we come to
I just
the
want to
planning commission?
mention that, are you going to the next meeting date? Are you going to
4.3.
Oh, 4.3. Yeah.
that is another Tuesday night.
Oh, it is a
Normally your
Tuesday.
Meeting is on the third Monday, but again, we have another
Holiday.
holiday. This is kind of the typical routine for the first two meetings of the year. So just note that that's a Tuesday night and it's not a mistake.
Thank you. I didn't realize that. Okay. And if there's nothing else, we'll adjourn our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Haley.
Yes.
Did you- Oh,
No, I was just saying goodbye.
oh, bye-bye. Oh, bye.
Bye, Catherine. Thank you.